In tonight's programme, a Renault with character. Will British car prices go up or down? And we meet the trucker with a penchant for black satin sheets.
Okay. The recession, they say, is officially over. That yellow orb, dimly remembered, has started to shine again, and everybody's got a spring in their step. So with boundless optimism, Top Gear reckoned this is an appropriate moment to talk supercars. I'm going to tell you about a bargain price slingshot that's pretty enough to stop a speeding train. Has a top speed of 165 miles an hour, a racetrack bloodline, and spine-tingling sound effects. A car with peerless handling that's mechanically unburstable and simple to maintain, and all for the price of a second-hand Granada. So here it is, this year's supercar snip, the Tomaso Pantera. Interested? Thought you might be.
The Pantera was the brainchild of an Argentinian racing driver turned car maker called Alessandro de Tomaso. Launched in '71, it had the Ford checkbook behind it. Uncle Henry was pushing his performance image for all it was worth. One reason why the Pantera had a GT40 gearbox and 5.7-litre Ford engine. Aimed at the North American market, like so many other 70s supercars, the Pantera was defeated by the fuel crisis of '73 to '74, forcing Ford to bow out gracefully after a less than successful production run of only 4,000 cars. But Alessandro fought on, producing Panteras in tiny numbers to a loyal and devoted following. In fact, they're still being made, but more of that later on. But the dirigible-sized question on everybody's lips is, does the Pantera go as well as it looks? Unholy alliance between American cubic inches and Italian chassis design, the Pantera's claim to fame is that it's the simplest of supercars. Not a single piece of light alloy in this engine, it's all cast iron crudity. There's only one camshaft, no fuel injection, and only 2 valves per cylinder. But for all its prehistoric mechanicals, it whacks out a hefty 350 brake horsepower and scorches to 30 in the time it takes to pronounce its name. 100 miles an hour comes up in a brutal 13 seconds dead. But all that performance needn't break the bank.
Well, the thing to remember about the Pantera is that it's so simple and straightforward. With its big Ford V8 cast iron engine. Because of this, it's relatively cheap to run. For instance, we can service your Pantera, full service, for under £200. Replace the clutch for $250, spark plugs £2 each, air filter, oil filter, £5 each. It's so cheap compared to Ferrari, probably only quarter the price.
Too good to be true? No. You really do get drop-dead looks, a marvellous woofle from that big V8 engine, Campagnolo alloy wheels and 4 provocatively raised exhaust pipes. Now, we don't often show you engines on Top Gear, but here's one that's worth close scrutiny. It is a veritable obscenity of an engine. A Ford 351 cubic inch V8 coupled to a ZF gearbox straight out of a GT40 with a transaxle and it's mid-mounted. It is essentially a racing car writ large. So how much is a Pantera? Well, this is a '74 car, an early one, bit of an old warhorse, but still quite fit. Something like this would cost you anything between £8,000 and £15,000. And what goes wrong? Well, bodies are steel, so make the usual checks for rust around the wheel arches, sills, bottom of the doors, but they're not bad rusters. The engine and gearbox, well, that's Stone Age mechanicals at its best, so they last forever. And the only other real problem area are the electrics. You've got to watch the air conditioning, the window lifts, the switches. But compared to a Maserati, a Lamborghini, or Ferrari, running one of these, it's a breeze. What you get is membership to the supercar set. It makes all the right noises and provides all the right sensations. You sit inches from the ground, legs horizontal, arms outstretched, watching the revs rise as you snick the stubby little lever through the chromium gate. 6 inches from your ear sits that vast 5.7 litre V8, throbbing and belching. I'm here to tell you, it feels very special, very good indeed. The absolute business. But the best news is the Pantera lives on. Top Gear is about to give you a world exclusive. The 1994 de Tomaso Pantera 200. Does that look gorgeous or what? With a 5-litre V8 and twin turbos, this honey pushes out 500 brake horsepower and is capable of an awesome 200 miles an hour. This wonderful confection may have a screen sticker of £80,000, but it's 40 grand cheaper than a Ferrari 512 TR, 60,000 less than a Lamborghini Diablo, and mere bagatelle compared to Jaguar's 415,000 XJ220. In the next series of Top Gear, we'll be showing you a first ever test drive of the new Pantera 200, what looks to be the cheapest 200-mile-an-hour supercar in the world. Be there or be square.
Papa, la voilà!
Renaults, like most French cars of a certain age, used to have an element of je ne sais quoi, that love it or hate it quirkiness that left you in no doubt where they came from. The Renault 4 vintage 1961 was no exception. A rather belated response to Citroën's 2CV. From its minimalist styling to the seats you could take out for a picnic, it had charm derived from ruthless practicality. A charm which was reflected in the commercials. 8 million of a car the French call a 4L have been sold. Alas, production has just ended, and with it, one might think, comes the end of an era of characterful Renaults. It's not that the Clio, the 19 and the Safran aren't perfectly good cars, it's just that they're a bit in the Eurobox mould. But there is something of a renaissance going on. This is Renault's new Twingo, a car with a face and, Renault hope, a personality. A car they'll think you'll buy because it dares to be different. It first appeared at the Paris Motor Show last autumn and caused a bit of a riot. No one believed a major car manufacturer would risk coming up with something a little out of the ordinary. Since it went on sale here in France last month, it's been doing a roaring trade. People seem to like the one-box shape and the designer details, such as the headlights, which resemble frog's eyes. No pun intended. Then there's the trendy bonnet scoops and the single oversized windscreen wiper that looks like something off a truck. And at the back, the cute round indicator lights. Nothing is quite where you'd expect to find it. For example, you don't normally find an aerial growing out of a wing mirror. And the door handles are remarkably like flying saucers. Inside, there's no shortage of humour either, starting with these rather frantic, brightly covered seats. No chance of falling asleep here. But one of the first things you notice when you get in the car is the green Lego factor. Everything's colour coordinated, knobs, buttons, you name it, apart from the hazard warning lights, operated by this rather curious red ping pong ball. Rather disappointing there is the lack of space for all the maps and bits and pieces you need when you're driving along. For example, there's no glove compartment, just a rather perfunctory shelf. One of the strangest things about the car as you're sitting at the wheel, though, is that the speedo is in the middle of the dashboard. It's digital and it doesn't give you a lot of extra information, but more importantly than that, it's actually quite difficult to see when the sun's shining. In front of the driver is this black hole, which contains the various warning lights. Getting into the back is easy with these very wide doors, and once you're safely installed, you can actually move the seat backwards and forwards. Now, I know you've seen that before with the Citroën ZX, but there's a much greater range of movement in the Twingo. In fact, there's plenty of lounging room. But the cost of all that is not an awful lot of boot space. Around town, it's easy to drive, easy to see out of, and there's plenty of power, so you don't have to zip up and down the gears too much as you're nipping in and out of the traffic. There's no power steering, but then the steering's pretty light anyway. Renault decided to build just one basic model, and that does mean you don't get any extras. So, for example, you don't have the option of electric windows, central locking, a knob to adjust the passenger's wing mirror, and you don't even get an intermittent wiper. But having said all that, it's just a great fun car to drive, and it really has got a lot of style. Leave the town for the open road, and you'll notice a distinct lack of oomph. The 1.2-litre engine hasn't come from the Clio, but from the old Renault 5. And on the autoroute, if you find a hill, you'll end up having to change gear.